Okay, so tonight just wanted to take you through the agenda before we get started. We're going to talk a little bit about the actual, coronavirus and the challenge that we face, our role as foundation, what we know so far, and what the clubs hopefully will already be doing, but if not, should be doing. Talk a bit about the support that's currently on offer, and then obviously come to questions at the end. Quick thanks to Kim and Chevy who helped me pull all this together. We'll talk a little bit more about staffing in a minute. So you might think it's a bit strange to stick this up to start with, but we had a call with ECB last week, and they are in conversation with government, DCMS and Sport England on a regular basis. And one of the things that has been fed back to ECB is that the people most likely to flout the current stay-at-home rules are adult males. So the message has been back through to us to just make sure that we promote the right messaging back to you guys. So I guess this is a big request from me for clubs to do their bit around communicating with your membership around the messaging from government, really. So whether that's on social media, whether that's in direct communication to your membership, just reminding people that the more that people follow the government guidance that's in place now, the more likely it is we might get some cricket in later in the season. Obviously, if the lockdown has to continue for longer, it just eats into that opportunity. And obviously, it says it right there, and by following the guidance, we are all doing our part towards saving lives. So some things are bigger than cricket, and this is a real big message. So if you, as the club network, can play your part in really being an advocate to your membership to make sure that everyone's doing their bit, that would be fantastic. Okay, so our role as foundation at the moment, you may have seen a communication that came out about a week ago. So we have had to take the decision to furlough a number of our staff at the moment. So there's currently 16 of us working for the foundation, and 11 of those have now been placed on furlough leave, which just enables us to secure some, short-term financial support that's going to help the foundation in terms of its operational costs over the coming months. So current members of the team that are still at work are myself, Kim Price, Debbie Green, Sarah Lynch, and Casey Baker. I think during this period, obviously, if you have direct communication lines with any of those people, continue to use them. Otherwise, the obvious place to go is the foundation@surreycricket.com email address, which myself, Chevy, and Kim are monitoring on a daily basis. Obviously, during this period, it's taken a bit of getting used to be honest, with everything closing down. Obviously the suspension of cricket, but we are busily working away. Obviously, looking at club support being a key feature, and there's been a bit of a lag whilst ECB, Sport England got their sort of ducks in a row and really thought carefully about what they needed to do. And there's been announcements obviously last week from both those organisations, government prior to that, and then ECB. We have a call on Wednesday where they'll be delivering more information about their financial packages, should I say. Obviously, where possible, we're also looking at contingency plans. So I know talking with the leagues, the senior leagues, they're looking at that very closely. I know the Surrey Slam have released information about how they intend to try and get cricket on should opportunities arise. And likewise, we had a call in the Surrey Junior Championship last Thursday evening. Again, looking at what the options may be should we get an opportunity to get out onto the field this year. I think the overall message from us as a foundation is that we're desperately keen to get cricket on should government and government guidelines allow us to do so. Clearly, during this period, we're going to continue communicating with the network regularly. So it really is, the places that we stick a lot of our information at this point are going to be on the website, and then via our social media channels there that you see in front of you, so Facebook and Twitter. And we will send out direct email communication to people as well. However, we're using data from the club-facing officers, and as I've found in the last couple of days, is not always 100% up to date. So if you can keep in touch with us via those channels. We'll try and keep in touch with you directly through our different communication vehicles as well. Okay, so what we know so far, for those of you that would have seen the ECB statement last week, all cricket has been suspended until 28th of May at the earliest. The decision making from ECB is being guided by government and by medical and scientific advice. They're very clear that anything they do will be driven by the government's advice. We won't be going out and doing anything until that green light has been passed. At the moment, government are on a recess, and the next time they sit will be the 11th of April. So at this point, there'll be no further decision making taking place at ECB level until after Parliament have sat. And I think going back to what the Prime Minister said 2 weeks ago today, the lockdown was a period of 3 weeks to start with. So I'm hopeful that there'll be an announcement next Monday, albeit Easter Monday, but around that time, which may give us an indication of whether the lockdown will continue. And once that sort of major decision's been made, I assume we will find that DCMS, Sport England and ECB make further decisions as well. You may have seen ECB have also gone through a process of furloughing a number of staff, and they've taken various steps to try and safeguard themselves and the game as best they can. Clearly, at the start of a brand new 5-year contract with Sky, there's ongoing discussions there around trying to get as much cricket played this year as possible to try and fulfil the Sky contract, which helps fund the game overall. And like I've already mentioned, the foundation, best way of getting hold of a member of the team, if you don't have a direct contact into the 5 people I mentioned earlier, is to use the foundation@surreycricket.com email address at this stage. We're all checking it regularly, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Okay, so on to what we would like clubs to be doing, and I fully expect that a number of people on this call are already doing this and have already done this, but we're going to talk people through it just on the off chance that some people aren't already taking these sorts of steps. Clearly, the options that ECB have shared with us are, there's 3 scenarios they're looking at. One is pretty much a full season, one is a reduced season, and one is no season. Clearly, nobody knows where we'll end up on that front, but I think realistically, a full season is looking incredibly doubtful. Even if we did start in early June, we've missed a month, and it would take a bit of catching up. A reduced season is most likely at this point, but no season's also still on the table, I would imagine. And what we want clubs to do is start to review your finances if you haven't already. And I know that a number have, so we're not trying to teach you to suck eggs, just trying to work through step-by-step process. So the point of this is to identify where those funding gaps might be. I'll come back to the survey in a second, but we want clubs to look at reducing expenditure, speaking to debtors, so speaking to the landlord if you have a landlord, speaking to the local authority, identifying anyone that you may owe money to, and seeing if you can reduce or adapt the terms of payment so that your expenditure is reduced. Check your insurance. Have you got business interruption insurance as part of your club insurance? You may think you haven't, but it's worth checking the small print, speaking to your insurer, ruling things out rather than just making assumptions at this stage. So don't commit. And when I say don't commit, what we mean there is don't commit to discretionary spend at this point. So I can give a personal example because my own club over in Berkshire, 2 days before the lockdown, one of our members of the committee who's been working on a project to refurbish our nets dropped a note onto our WhatsApp committee chat and said, look, come on, can we just press go and spend money on renovating these nets? And obviously the message back was, we're not going to be spending that sort of money at this stage because we don't know what's happening with the season at this point. So don't commit to things at this stage. Press pause, press hold, because you can come back to them when you know more. but at this stage, it's more than likely you'll need cash flow within your club to operate effectively over the coming months. Communicate, and that's speaking to your membership, making sure that communication channels are open, making sure you keep people informed about what's happening. Try and keep people engaged. I've seen some fantastic stuff online on social media in the last few weeks. So a shout out to Church, see if they're on the call. They've been particularly committed and regular with their posting around different activities. You've seen we've done little bits and bobs as well, but try and keep cricket in people's minds and communicate so people know what's happening, know what the plans are, and just are kept informed, I suppose. And I can go back to the messaging around the government advice with communication as well. So if you can, ensure those messages go out, that would be fantastic as well. And don't rush. So, we don't know where we're going to be in June, July, August. At this stage, we know there'll be no cricket before the end of May, but we don't need to rush to make decisions on anything. So I've heard, of clubs in other counties looking to refund all membership fees. That may become something that clubs want to consider. Likewise, clubs may wish to try and secure that income where possible. Clearly, what we've got to remember within the impact of COVID-19 on society is that money is tight for a lot of people now. There's mass unemployment, there's mass furloughing. So we need to be mindful and sensitive of our memberships, but at the same time, make sure that the membership understand the importance of membership fees and that kind of stuff within the operational costs of a cricket club. And I'll come on to a couple of examples of clubs that have done some really good stuff on that in a minute. Club Matters is a link to Sport England club development site, and that site has got lots of good information. I'll just click on it so you can see around sort of what committees could be doing, how they can be working, building up emergency budgets, and that kind of stuff. So really good resource. So if your club's not sure where to start, it's definitely worth going in here to have a bit of a look. So that link will be on the presentation that comes out. Oh, sorry, the survey. So in order to be best placed to understand the landscape across the county, we've taken the decision to create a short survey, which I think is 6 questions long, just to start understanding where each club's situation sort of falls. So what we'd ask as a result of this call is for one member of every club, and I assume that would be a chairman or a treasurer or somebody at committee level, to complete the survey on behalf of their club and just answer the questions that are in there. I'll quickly show them to you because I can't remember which order they were in, but we're going to collect a little bit of contact information. Obviously, we want to get an indication of your club's financial position as a result of where we're at. So you see the 4 options there. Club will be able to survive without utilising any reserves. Unlikely, but there may be a couple that can do that. The club will need to use reserves but will cope otherwise. Even with reserves, there may be a shortfall, or we have no reserves and our survival will depend on what financial assistance we can access. We also just want to get a general understanding of the expected financial shortfall for this coming season. Any steps you've taken so far to try and reduce and mitigate those financial risks the club faces. Just checking to see if you've looked into the government research, and if so, what you've applied for and or accessed. And then if you've been able to raise funds for your club in different ways during this period, please let us know so we can share that practice with the network. Okay, so hopefully by building up this, I suppose, database of clubs, and it's not going to be for mass circulation, it's going to be for internal use to really understand the clubs most at risk, and as you'll see in a minute, you'll understand what I mean by that soon. But that will really help us paint the picture and understand the breadth of the challenges that we face as a county, which is important for us to help move everything forward. Okay, so financial support. As I just mentioned, we need to protect the clubs most in need. So it's really worth emphasising this now, and as much as I'd like to be saying it in a different way, there will not be enough grant aid funding to go around to support every club. So those clubs that can manage need to take on that mantle and cope and get through without coming to try and access grant aid funding where possible, because there simply won't be enough money to go around. I think Sport England released £195 million worth of support package last week, of which a fairly small proportion of that was within a grant aid pot for emergencies. But Sport England is covering football, rugby, tennis, netball, and the list goes on. 40, 50, 60 different NGBs are being covered in that. So that money won't go very far. So the message is very much that those in most need are the ones that we need to support at this stage. Clubs that have reserves will need to use them. The foundation has built up an amount of reserves over the past few years, which we are going to start using in order for us to continue operating. Now, clearly, nobody would have sat here 12 months ago thinking we're going to have to potentially spend money that we've saved for a rainy day or for a major project and use it in a different way. But we're in a pretty tricky situation as a game and as a society in reality. So those reserves are where people are going to need to dip if they have them. I put their look internally as well as externally, and worth mentioning a couple of clubs, Cheam and Long Ditton, this week or over the weekend have both run GoFundMe pages. So I'll maybe include a link to that when I send out the information. So they've gone out and basically gone out to their membership and local communities looking to raise some funds to help get them through this difficult period, and been fairly successful with it. Certainly Long Ditton have, and Cheam are following behind in terms of their project to try and generate some money to help offset these losses that are putting the club at risk this year. So do look internally as well as externally. You may find there are members in your club that are willing to help, willing to support during these difficult times. And then another key message that came from ECB really, which is the Sport England funding and the ECB funding that may follow will only be supported once all government support has been exhausted. And we'll come on to the government support in a moment. Clearly not all of it is going to be relevant to every club, and every club is very much unique in its own set of circumstances around its ground, its tenure, its constitutional setup, and so on. So we know that some of this potential support won't work for every club, but at the same time we know that some clubs are already looking into and benefiting from some government support. So there are opportunities out there. Okay, just going to pause for a drink. So the government support, which came from the Chancellor of the Exchequer within pretty much a week, I think, of it all kicking off. And there's a range of support options available, not clearly to all clubs, but definitely available to some. 12 months rates holiday, and that is potentially including clubs that are a cask. And you'll see another statement a bit later on which details a little bit about that. But if you pay business rates or you pay rates on your current ground, you can save some money through the government support on offer. If you employ people, clearly not all clubs do, but a number of clubs do employ small to medium-sized workforces, and in some cases quite large. There's the job retention scheme, so the furloughing scheme is available, and I know of a number of clubs, number of the large clubs have already started utilising that scheme, which pays 80% of people's salaries during the time at which they are furloughed. If, as a club, you're at the size where you pay VAT, I think there's you have VAT deferral, so no payments on VAT for a period of time, which is hopefully going to free up some cash flow. And also, similar to the job retention scheme, there's now a self-employment income support scheme, which was launched, I think, last week, starting to roll out. So for those clubs that work with people that are self-employed, there's a scheme there to assist them as well. There is grant funding for small to medium-sized businesses within leisure. So I'm aware of a club within Surrey that have accessed a £10,000 grant already. So they had a through their local authority. Clearly, it's not going to be relevant for all organisations, but if you are a club that behaves as a business in terms of maybe you are having organisations letting your space out, such as nurseries, that kind of stuff. You run events from your pavilion, such as anything, meetings, weddings, wakes, that kind of stuff. There may be support there, and we have pulled together a list of all of the relevant local authority sites that you can access, which we will share with the email that comes out afterwards. It's not going to obviously be relevant for everyone. It's not going to work for everyone, but it may work for some, and it may have a significant impact on cash flow for some clubs across the county. So I think my message to all clubs would be ask the question. It's better to get a no than not ask the question and find out later that actually you might have got a yes. That the worst that will happen is you'll get a no and you'll move on to the next piece of support. Obviously, for larger organisations as well, there's business interruption loans as well. So there's opportunities to loan money. Now I know clubs don't, in an ideal world, want to be taking out loans because you've got to pay them back. But these are unprecedented times, and like I said at the outset of the funding piece, there won't be enough money to give everyone a grant that's going to get them through this. So some clubs will have to consider loans as a way forward. There's obviously more schemes and options within the government support as well. The link to the government support page is at the top of the page, and like I said, the PDF that follows will include information about your actual local authority best place to start in terms of finding that information out. Okay, so Surrey Community Foundation have got grants of up to £5,000. This will only cover probably the 11 rural boroughs in Surrey, so not the London boroughs, metropolitan boroughs. Again, on face value, doesn't look massively like it's aimed at a sports club, but it talks about supporting voluntary organisations, supporting the most vulnerable and isolated, but including families with young people or young children, should I say. So again, it's worth asking the question, should you need that money, to see if they may support you, particularly if your club is in and around areas of deprivation across the county. It may be an option, and if the finances are that tight within your club, it's worth putting in an application or contacting them to see if you might be eligible. Okay, so just a little bit here on the CASC clubs. This is from the Alliance for Recreation and Sport, who have written some guidance notes on the government support packages, and that's available on our website, a link to that, which we'll then include in the email as well. But in essence, the message is that if you are a CASC that gets a percentage of rate relief at the moment, it should be topped up to benefit, so you should benefit from the full 100%. Again, contacting your local authority is the way to start that conversation. Okay, so ECB and Sport England support, which you would have seen the news stories about last week. So ECB loans, so anyone who has a current loan or is in the process of applying for a loan, of which I think there's 6 in our county at the moment, ECB have confirmed the repayment holiday, so there'll be no repayments until May 2021, which just, again, a lot of the support from ECB, and we've had some as well locally, is around freeing up cash flow, because that's I think the big concern at the moment is having cash flow and the ability to operate in these coming months. Okay, subsequently, in the big announcement last week, which was the £61 million package for the game from ECB, covering the professional game all the way through, there's £20 million of funding towards the recreational game. £18 million of that will be in business interruption loans, and then again, for the clubs most in need, there'll be some access to grant aid funding. But again, there's over 4,000 clubs across the country. You can do the maths pretty quickly in terms of how far that 2 million will go. Again, ECB loans are interest-free, and I'm pretty sure that repayment holiday will be until May 2021 as well. More information from ECB will follow on Wednesday evening. I think we've got a call Wednesday afternoon, so we'll find out more then. So for some, cash flow and access to finance to help you survive this period will be there in one way or another, but it won't all be in grant aid funding. And as much as we'd love it to be, it's just not the case. So we have to be realistic about that. And then Sport England, the main fund that they've opened up, so for the clubs most in need, is this Community Emergency Fund, which is, I think it's probably being run through their small grants portal. So it's grants of £300 to £10,000, and it's there to support clubs that have got bills to pay and no money to pay them, essentially. So that information's on our website. It's also linked at the top here. I'll just take you through to it quickly. So it covers all the detail here. So it's a £20 million emergency pot, but that has got to cover the whole of the sporting spectrum, not just cricket. Okay, so in summary, plan scenarios at your club around the financial outcome. So if you haven't already, start to consider what that's going to look like, what your shortfall might be, or how you can manage your shortfall, reduce it, and hopefully get by without the need to borrow or seek grant aid funding. If your club can manage without support, please do so. Now is the time for those clubs that can manage to manage, because there's going to be lots that need support. Consider all government support available, and remember, grant aid support will be very limited. So you will have to go in with your eyes open on that one in terms of loans and other ways of accessing financial support. That may be through going to your membership, maybe through crowdfunding, it may be through any other novel ways that you might have. Stay in touch with us via the foundation at email address and our social channels. And then importantly, from our perspective, if you can find the time to complete that survey over the next week or so, if you already know the numbers, please complete it as soon as you can. But obviously over the next couple of weeks, we'll continue to mention and talk about that and push that survey. Okay, so that just ends our presentation. So I'm just going to come out of sharing my screen, and then we'll come back onto here. Okay, so what I'll do is just work through I'll work through these questions as best we know from what we've had. Obviously, beyond this evening, if you have additional questions, you can feed them into the foundation at surreycricket.com website, email address, and we will then come back to you. And if it's a relevant question that we can answer for everyone, we'll add it to our FAQs and circulate. So looking here, we've got Bernie from Byfleet. By shortfall, assume you mean revenue, not profit. Essentially what we're looking at is, what's your financial shortfall? So if you take a profit and loss, a P&L, and your income was due to be 100,000, your expenditures 60, normally you'd make a 40,000 pound surplus, and this year your income's going to be 20 and your expenditures going to be 60, you've got a 40 grand deficit. That's what the numbers we're looking at. What might the deficit be after you've also considered and used considered cost savings, reducing expenditure, and then also looked at what was I going to say? If you've got reserves, tapping into those reserves. So hopefully that answers that question. David, in terms of casks, the best thing for you to do is to contact the local authority, so Southwark in your instance, and to basically seek the support that's available there, and those guys will be, or the local authority will know the answers to those questions around what casks are and aren't eligible for. I think within the presentation it talks about the full rate relief. So if you're already on some rate relief, that should be topped up to 100%, but you may also be able to access additional funds from the government as well. So, Johan, I think to answer that question, what the message coming back is if clubs come to ECB, Sport England, apply for money, and then the question is asked, have you actually sought the government support that may be available? And the club says no, that won't put you in a great position in what's going to be a highly competitive environment. Unfortunately, when it comes to the number of grant applications coming in is going to be high. So yes, just be sure that you're tapping into every option that may be available to you. So ask the questions. I appreciate it might not be a case of trying the government stuff, waiting to hear back, and then progressing through. But I'd also make sure that before you do any of that, you understand what your financial position is. So rather than just sort of scattergun apply for stuff, actually understand what it is, where it is that you're short, how much buy, and then proceed on that basis would be my advice. So Mike, to answer your question around ground maintenance, we have posted an update today on that. So on the website here, you've got the ECB guidance surrounding COVID-19. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen with you there at the moment, so that would that won't really make much sense to you. So just bear with me a second. Let me share my desktop. Okay, so if you go to Surrey Cricket Foundation homepage, in the news there's a groundsman guidance update here, and today the Institute of Groundsmanship, whose name is changing over the coming days, so don't fall for that one like I did earlier on social media. They've got an interim works and fit for play PDF which outlines guidance around what people should be doing, how they should be doing it, and talks a little bit about it covers off the information about volunteering as well. So I would suggest that that's the place to go to understand the situation. So I think that the message to people working on grounds is, I think the government guidance is, if you cannot do your job from home, which obviously a groundsman couldn't, then you may still go to work so long as you're fulfilling social distancing guidelines. I think what it's talking about there within volunteers may be different, so it's worth reading that because that is the official guidance around groundsmanship that we've released. Okay, so David is talking a little bit about your insurance covered SARS but not notifiable diseases. Okay, I think all I'd say is that, David, is once you do find out, could you let us know at the foundation, because if you get positive response, we'd like to start to share that with the network. So Sam, a couple of clubs have used GoFundMe pages. So let me share my screen and take you to one of them. Yeah, as if by magic, they're at the top of the page. So they've used a GoFundMe page to raise money to help them get through these difficult times, and they've raised £8,500. So this is via donations. Now, I'm not an expert on this in terms of the gift aiding element within GoFundMe, but what we can try and do is get somebody who is more of an expert on GoFundMe to maybe let us know, or I'll look into it tomorrow. I'll get a member of the team to look into it. So some clubs are doing that and have been successful. I think it's about understanding your own situation, your own membership, and then within that, making a call. The gift aid bit, I'm unsure about. It will depend on whether as an organisation you are set up to accept gift aid. So Aidan, with the grant and leisure industry, I think the best way to go with that is to contact Guildford Borough Council at Horsley and Send, and have that conversation directly with them. Obviously, it depends on individual circumstances. The club that have received £10,000 have a cafe that's linked with it, so they've also got an operational business. That may be what's led them to get that funding. But likewise, I know of other clubs that in Guildford that are applying for that, or looking into that at the moment on the back of other work they do. At the end of the day, whilst we may not be, whilst some clubs may not be a PLC, we are operating a community. It's a small business in many ways in terms of operating bars, running events, and that kind of stuff. So without being able to go into individual clubs' circumstances to understand fully how that works, the best thing to do is for the club to contact the local authority and to have that conversation, rule it in or out. Because the club that have received it fairly quickly. So if it is a possibility, then the money can come quite quickly, which may be really beneficial. Chris, yes. So 28th of May is the earliest date for recreational cricket as well. That wasn't in the original communication that came out. The original communication just said it was suspended, didn't give a date, whereas the professional game always had the 28th of May. They've now sort of joined that together. Woody, community clubs, should we discourage families from using facilities in a responsible way? I think the clubs should just reinforce the messaging that's coming out from the government, which is to avoid all non-essential travel, to people only to come out of their homes to exercise or to shop. All of that guidance should be followed. We definitely shouldn't be encouraging anything that's going to potentially lead to groups of people gathering. So that would be my advice on that one. So Ian, with the DBS, so ECB have already taken that decision. So with DBSs for the time being, people can apply in the usual way, or they'll go to apply. And when it comes to verification, there's a core group of about 12 people across the county that can now verify those DBSs via video links. They've obviously shrunk the number of people that have access to it to try and maintain quality and the quality assurance on it, because it is obviously outside of the usual guidelines, but we are in a position to be able to support on that. So hopefully there won't be a pressure when it's released, because we'd encourage people still to get their DBSs, apply and move forward with that over the coming weeks. Dhruv, I don't think there's any deadlines linked with this funding at the moment. So it's a case of going through those steps that I mentioned earlier. So looking at the government support first before you start coming down to Support England, ECB, and other options. It's a case of, first of all, getting your financial structure or financial understanding in place. So what is it? What are the risks that you face? What is the shortfall that you're looking at? And then starting to go from there. Jamie, just replying to David there with a bit of advice from the insurance. Andrew, no direct no direction as such from ECB regarding clubs. I go back to the start saying don't rush, because at the moment we don't know where we're going to get to, how much cricket we might get. So don't rush to make decisions, but consider different options that may be available to you. So some clubs are just encouraging people still to donate their membership come what may, because it's going to help the survival of the club. You may wish to, if you've already taken memberships, you may wish to, in 2021, if you can afford to, reduce the fees so that people get some of that money back in a year's time. And and there's a number of other options in between. Clearly, some people will be falling on financial hardship during this period, so we'd encourage clubs to treat your members on an individual basis in some ways. If somebody would like their money back because they need it for other reasons, we expect clubs to obviously buy into that. But I don't think there'll be direction as such. It'll be a case of probably sharing some good practice. So where clubs have come up with good and novel ways of trying to maintain subscriptions on the back of potentially limited cricket, we'd like to share that to see if other clubs can benefit from that as well. Okay, so John Brown, there's giving a bit of an update there from Pitch Hero. I've got an alternative to GoFundMe, and there's a webinar about that, so have a look at that. Yeah, so Nigel, there's lots of stuff already going on. So if you go onto social media, you'll find huge amounts of cricket drills from organisations like Chance to Shine and Surrey Cricket, the Academy, are posting lots of drills and videos. But ECB will be doing some work on some of their All-Stars and Dynamo cricket style activities over the coming weeks. So look out for that. Obviously, Sarah there has filled you in on that one as well. So the Surrey Academy, so Surrey CAG are running some stuff there. Okay, and Aidan's saying check out Richmond, who've got their Pitch Hero stuff up and live already. But note there's a manual gift aid for each, so the gift aid may be limited. Okay, it's coming up to 8:45. If anyone's got any other questions at this point, please feel free to type them now. And if anyone wants to get in touch, obviously you know where we all are. See, Robert's there. So Robert with All Stars, I think All Stars within the ECB announcement last week stated that they will be in touch over the next 3 weeks to confirm how that moves forward. It's currently suspended until further notice. So on a personal level, I managed to get my 33 kids booked onto my All Stars program at my club this year really early. So everyone's got their kit bags, and my kids included. And now we've currently not maybe got an All Stars program, but ECB are looking at how they might go with that. They may still send out packs and encourage kids to do stuff in the gardens for £40, or however much the All Stars is within your own local areas. The pack alone is worth that anyway. It's probably not such a bad scenario, and with it being an 8-week program, there's quite a lot of flexibility to move it later into the summer, maybe do it twice a week if we get the option. So there's lots of opportunities with All Stars potentially to still get some stuff done. Okay, cool. Thanks for all your thanks. Obviously, we're all in this together. We are here to try and help. There is no magic solution though, so we're going to have to all work hard. Please stay in touch with us and get the survey done. I'm going to log off now, and I will get the recording up as soon as possible. Thank you very much, everybody.